Okay, today we're going to be working on this positioner block, and I want you to notice that this block has a symmetry to it, and I'm showing you the line of symmetry that's there. We're going to use a center rectangle that's going to place the origin right in the middle of the block. So that's the block we're going to draw. The first thing we're going to do is choose the plane that we're going to work in. We're going to choose the front plane. And here, rather than using a corner rectangle, which we've used a lot in some of our lessons, we're going to use the center rectangle because there is symmetry in this part. It's a good thing to get into the habit of looking for symmetry and placing the origin as close to any lines of symmetry as possible. So in this case, it's helpful to have a center rectangle rather than a corner rectangle. So here I am going through and I'm dimensioning the edges of the rectangle. Notice that I started the center of the rectangle at the origin. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and start to extrude this, but then you can see I went and made a mistake. So even though I got all the way through to the extrusion process, I realized that it looked a little different than it was supposed to on the page. So I went and checked my dimensions and said, you know what, that dimension's off. So I went back into the sketch, double click the dimension, and changed it to 3.5 instead of 2.5. So now I'm going to just extrude it. And now I've got my base. And then from the base, I'm going to then cut into the base with all my other features. The first feature that I'm going to cut is this V part, this V shape. It's more than just a V. Remember that any shape that you draw that you want to cut or extrude has to be closed. So it's not just a V, it's actually a triangle. And notice that I want to bring those lines up so that they meet with the edges. You can see that those green squares are indicating that the dots are, the edges of the lines are meeting with the edge of the box itself. And here I'm adding dimensions. Make sure that when you add your dimensions that you go from the edge to the vertex of the line. Don't go from the corner of the box. Always go to the edges like that. Okay. And then this one is going to be our last one, and once I meet it down with the bottom edge of the box, you can see that it's now fully defined, which is what we want. Okay. Now this kind of V shape is cut through the entire block, so I think it's always a good idea to make sure that you double check and click that the end result, even though it looks like it's cutting through the whole block, go ahead and double check and say and make sure that it says through all. Okay, now we're going to work on the side of this, and we've got this little rectangle that we're going to draw here. I like to draw a rectangle. You could draw this using just 4 lines. This is a corner rectangle. Notice about using a corner rectangle, 2 of the edges are already defined, and all I have to do is add 2 dimensions to fully define this particular sketch so that we can extrude cut it. Again, I'm going to go down to through all. The reason I use through all is because if the dimensions of the overall object change and you've set the cut to a certain length, it doesn't always cut all the way through the way that you would want it to. Okay, now we're going to focus on the circle, and I want you to notice that I didn't really even take the time to normal to or flatten out to the plane so that I could draw the circle looking at it dead on. That's okay, but if things get confusing, it's always a good idea to press Control 7 and center out and normal to that plane so that it's flat and easier to read. I just did this because I can do it kind of quickly. There's always 3 things you need to fully define a circle onto a plane. You need to have a position, an X position, a Y position, and a diameter. And now we know it's black, it's fully defined. We're going to go and extrude And notice that that extrusion didn't go all the way through by default, so we have to tell it to cut all the way through. And that is our part. It looks pretty good. Okay, good luck with this project.